got dropped off, or she could have been killed in that accident. And I just told her, well, Ma, I'm glad it was me, not you. I mean, I could bounce back from these injuries, and I did hire an attorney, but nothing came of it. I did get some physical therapy and all that, but again, because a AAA driver ran a red light. Ironically, when I go back to the intersection nowadays, when I go back home, they have those roundabouts. So what are your thoughts about roundabouts, Xavier?
Well, I really didn't have too many positive thoughts about them when I first was learning about them, when I was getting my license in my teenage years. But, now simply for me, Scott, this goes back to just paying attention most of the time. But to me, roundabouts are like this. You can pay attention, but you better hope that the other person who is approaching these roundabouts with you is paying attention as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because you never know how that's going to go.
Yeah.
And I'm very cautious, and I yield when I'm going to these roundabouts.
Right.
I drive around them very slowly so that I can get some type of idea and at least look around me to see who's coming, how fast are they coming, how quick do I need to get out of the way. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's now how I view those roundabouts.
Well, let me tell you something, Xavier. There are many things I don't like on the road, but those are one of them, man. I got news for you, pal. I hate roundabouts. My wife will tell you the same thing. I can handle a lot of things, but just not those. I don't have the patience for those. I kid you not, pal. I don't have the patience for roundabouts. But I understand that whether I have the patience or not, you better, like you always say, concentrate anyways to make sure that you have the ability to get around them, or you're going to be part of the agriculture. That's one of my favorite lines, is part of the agriculture. Put that in my Scottisms category, okay, the next time you talk about drivers, being part of the agriculture. Because that's what you are when you get in an accident, right?
Yes.
And I don't know. I mean, when you look at all the different things out there now, you ever driven on a California expressway?
No, I have not had the opportunity to do that yet.
I'm not so sure you really want it. I guarantee you and I could have reckless driving episode 2. If you want to find out what a California freeway is, I'll encourage you to contact Chris Roberts, and he'll give you a good overview of those things, man. They're not fun, because I'll tell you what, those people drive probably between 90 and 130 miles an hour, depending on what part of the state area you're going to. California is a tough place to drive. A lot of big cities are. But when if you're on a freeway versus a subway, subway you're not driving, except when you're driving somebody crazy, okay, and a California freeway, the blood pressure still gets up there quite a bit. Mark my word. I'll be doing it again.
Here's what I will say. And, just from the outside looking at how those California roadways are shaped anyway, especially in Los Angeles, yeah, listen, L.A. is one of my prime destinations I want to be someday for my career, but if for some reason I was ever wary about that, that would be a reason why. And, I've seen, and, it goes back to the big city thing that you just said, too. Obviously, me being from the Atlanta area, oh, yeah, I've seen my share of accidents that have happened on the 285 Spaghetti Junction roadway, of course. But, seeing something directly up close in the fall of 2016 when I was able to go to Washington, D.C. for the opening of the African American Museum that is now there, the Smithsonian. And, we're waiting to get back on our charter bus to go back to our hotel. It's a group of other Savannah State journalism students and myself and a few of our professors. We're just there for that opportunity and that experience. And as we're waiting for the charter bus, I'm just noticing so much reckless driving that's going on there. People who are turning on turning signals when they're not supposed to, people who are driving too fast. I mean, Scott, it was literally by the hair of somebody's chin that we did not witness an accident that day, because two cars came very close to colliding with each other at some point, but they just did miss each other. So, yes, I'm in total agreement with you when it comes to that on the accident thing. And here's one thing I'll say about New York City, too. I don't see too many people in New York City who are driving their vehicles. But, that's definitely a place where you have to go to keep your head on a swivel at all times, because when I went to New York in November of 2017, I definitely saw a few people who made contact with a few taxis because they were not paying attention, or because the drivers may not have been paying attention.
Well, let me tell you this, Xavier. I live in South Florida, and you got a lot of those people driving down here, and all they do is honk horns. So let me ask you a question, okay? What's the fastest you've ever driven on an interstate?
The fastest I've ever driven on an interstate was going 90.
Okay.
It was going 90.
Okay. So if some guy blew past you on the interstate, and would you cap it at 85, or would you drive by him anyways? Because the one thing I learned in driver's ed is, even though sometimes you take it to a different level, you know what I mean? Keep up with traffic. Well, if it means keeping up with traffic means you're going 90, 95 miles an hour, you do it. Because sometimes they'll nail you for driving too slow, not keeping up with traffic. I'm not going to sit here and tell you if somebody blew by me that I didn't want to get past them. I'm not going to tell you that I don't have a NASCAR mentality on the road, but I also drive an SUV, and I'm a tactical driver is what I am. I don't know how you are, but I know I am. And to me, certainly you like to try to keep it within 70 and 80 if you can, but that's not to say that if I have to go a little quicker, or maybe there might be a time once in a while if I'm tired that I'll try to drive a little quicker to get to safe zone to avoid an accident. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but everybody has their moments. You don't look down upon anybody for doing what they've got to do, but have I driven 100? Maybe approach it one or two times, but try not to. But if somebody's blowing by me on the interstate, you know what? I'm going past them too. I don't want to get stuck and caught up in slow traffic where it becomes a liability. So what I'm trying to tell you, Xavier, there's an exception to every rule. Okay, it's not the norm, but it's certainly not the, it's not the norm, but it's not the exception either. You follow me?
Yes.
So that thing called self-preservation is what you've got to do, and everybody has a reason to do it. Do you want to make a habit out of it? No. But, at least I give you a lot of credit. At least you say you've gone 90 miles an hour. My wife goes ahead, and she's smart. She takes her tablet and goes ahead and sits in the passenger side. She don't want to look at the speedometer. But with all due respect, I do go ahead and follow the flow of traffic, especially on the interstate. Do I look at the interstate as my racetrack? Maybe once in a while.
Well, as you said, sometimes you have to do that. The only thing that I'm ever cautious of when it comes to something like that is you never know where the police are hiding it. That's the only thing that I'm usually cautious of when it comes to something like that. Because I've driven on the interstate many a times where, I may be going between 70 and 80, and then there's a car that's going by me that's driving like 95, and the police literally come out of nowhere and they're pulling this person over on the side of the road. So that's one of the main things I'm cautious of when it comes to things like that. Of course, being cautious and aware of the other vehicles that are around you too. But if you're going with the flow of traffic, unless somebody does something really stupid, you usually don't have anything to worry about in that case. Now, Scott, you talked about driving very slowly, and I'll share another story with you very quickly.
Sure.
Of an elderly man who was in my neighborhood when I was growing up as a young boy, named Mr. Gus. He's long passed on now. Mr. Gus will be well over 100 years old today if he was still alive. Great man, God rest his soul. But Mr. Gus, they had to take Mr. Gus off the roadway, Scott, because Mr. Gus had a tendency to drive his vehicle at 15 miles per hour, no matter where he was. So they had to take him off the roadway. They had to take his license away from him, and people had to drive for him eventually.
Right. Now,
this was around 2004, 2005 when this happened, but, you see this white Toyota vehicle in front of you that is just moving slower than the pace of a snail, and you will just know immediately that's Mr. Gus. But, one day somebody finally was smart enough to take him off the roadway. because I believe Mr. Gus was actually traveling on one of the interstates in the DeKalb County area one day, and he was driving that slowly. And yeah, you just can't do that when you get that far and that close within that vicinity and that proximity of Atlanta. No, you just can't do that. So I'm glad somebody actually took him off the roadway that day.
Well, let me tell you, Xavier, I've lived in Arizona, and you know, Sun City, Arizona, is where a lot of old people will drive, you know, in their area, and a lot of them have heart attacks on the roads. Let me tell you, that's not a fun situation, but yet there are a lot of elderly people that live in there, and they do have heart attacks on the road. I can tell you many times on I-95, you got a bunch of foreign people that don't know how to drive. They're driving 50 miles an hour on the interstate. There's so many different variables. The one thing I can honestly take pride in, though, is the fact that I don't drink and I don't drive, and every time I went out with a group of people, I was always a designated driver. And I just don't, I think now that's what you call reckless in every sense of the word. So, yeah, and I don't like to drive after 10, 11 o'clock, but when I'm at the studio, you know what, I do what I've got to do, but then you have to pay close attention to what is around you. Now, I've learned through the years, okay, and this is where I do have like 3 decades on you, okay, that after a while and a couple of tickets, you generally know where the speed traps are, you know, so you kind of pay a little bit more attention to them, you know. So, you know, especially on the interstates, you know what I'm saying? You know, if there's a lot of agriculture between one end of the freeway on one side, east and west, you know what I mean? You know they're hiding out someplace. They are. You can generally pick those things up. But, you know, like anything else, you know, I was actually, you weren't even born when cell phones first came out. But when I was playing Little League Baseball, and I was like 9 or 10 years old, Xavier, cell phones used to be a novelty item where they were mounted into the bottom of the vehicle, you know, inside. And I had a coach one time use a cell phone because we didn't have no umpires show at a game. And now, obviously, we've graduated where everybody's holding these things in the palm of their hand. They're like walking computers. Well, what a long ways to go, Xavier. Can you imagine what it would have been like back in the day? You know how much I used to...
No, I cannot.
You know how much I used to go ahead and have... there were times when cell phones were installed in my vehicle. I used to take about $100 to take them out and $100 to get them back in. Every time I got a new vehicle, it was a pain in the butt. But regardless, no matter what hashtags you throw on this broadcast, distraction, it doesn't take a whole lot to be distracted nowadays. But the one thing I'm going to tell you right now is you better... Larry Bird coined the phrase, you better think 3 steps ahead of the other guy, right? You better do that and play chess when you're with people on the road. Because sometimes you have to be offensive, sometimes you have to be defensive. Depends on what you have in front of you. You don't know when that next red light's going to be run. You don't know if somebody's version of yellow is their version of red, you know? They don't care.
And you also never know when you're going to have some idiot in the roadway who decides they want to do a donut in the middle of the road. I've seen that happen, too.
Or you don't know when you're sitting at a traffic light, somebody gets upset with you and they're going to pull their gun. That's all she wrote in your history. Social media is not helping matters out either, is it? Because now you see one incident and all of a sudden they lead to more other people get an idea. Oh, goodness, man. So, I mean, you know... Well, we talked about the 5 main points, reckless driving. You being in the news business probably see and hear about it all the time, and I'm sure that there's no 2 stories alike. Is there?
No, there are not, and I've seen one incident in particular watching a traffic camera where a vehicle was running a red light and just ran right directly into another vehicle. And this is while watching a traffic camera live, looking for another accident that was supposed to be happening in that area. So, I mean, it's like you said, I mean, distractions, I mean, it's easily to get distracted these days, and you say think 3 steps ahead. No, Scott, I say think 10 steps